Welcome everybody to Betting Pros. Obviously, last night, realities of football and realities of life and death came into play in the Monday Night Football game between the Bills and the Bengals. We're here today to talk some football with you all, but we are well aware of the circumstances and how heavy they hang right now for the life of Damar Hamlin and for his teammates, his family, and everyone who was involved in what happened last night. And obviously a very difficult set of circumstances. So with heavy hearts, we're here today to do a show, and we're going to do our best to do that show. But at the same time, everyone's mind is somewhere else. Everyone's thoughts, their prayers, their hopes are for Damar Hamlin's speedy recovery. And I think it is a certainly something that is, as Pat was mentioning before the show, uncharted waters for all of us here. We've never been in a circumstance like this. We've seen injuries in the NFL. We've never seen something quite like that. And I'm very happy, for one, that they did not force those young men to continue playing last night's game. I think it was the right call. And I want to give credit to the coaches. I want to give credit to the teams to stop and realize that reality is far more important than a game. And once again, a set of circumstances that was very difficult, and it was handled very well last night by many people in the media. So I want to focus on the positives. Ryan Clark and Scott Van Pelt last night did an amazing job discussing and trying to continue to broadcast in the circumstances, which was completely different than anything I think any of us have ever experienced. We've all been through different moments in our lives, and certainly in some strange scenarios in the past. But I think this was a unique scenario last night where everyone's sitting excited for a Monday Night Football game. What we got was a harsh dose of reality. And I think, gentlemen, all we can do is just remind everybody that, we continue to hope for the best. It was, although a very scary moment, also a moment where you look around and you see, once again, the good. Kind of go back to that old Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers kind of stuff back on PBS. Mr. Rogers always said, look for the good, look for the people doing good, look for the amazing people, the EMTs who came out to work, look for the amazing people and the doctors who were there to do their job to get him stable as he could be in this critical condition, and look to all of the incredible people and the support on social media and the incredible work that people did donating to his GoFundMe for the children's Toys for Tots that Mr. Hamlin set up. So although a very difficult night, a night where you can take out a lot of positive things as well, and we continue to stay positive here for Damar Hamlin, his family, his teammates, and football is secondary to all of those things. And we are not going to talk about those games because the games coming up for those two teams are not on the board, and those games are inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. Matthew Freedman, Pat Fitzmaurice, is there anything you'd like to add here before we continue on today with the business of football, which is, we all know, inconsequential to a large degree right now. But again, it's something that we know is also going to happen, and we're also going to do our best to do our jobs here today.
Yeah, nothing for me. I think you said it well, and obviously our thoughts are with the Bills and their family, and Damar Hamlin and everyone who's involved there, and football fans in general. It's a tough game, and I think everyone knows it's a tough game. And I think it's just thankful that stuff like this doesn't happen more often. That these guys they really lay their bodies on the line every day, every game, every play. Every day that they're out there. And so, obviously our thoughts are with all of them.
Yeah, Pat, they are the gladiators in the arena in the modern day. That's what they are. And we all know, how hard they work. This is their dream too. I mean, so this is people living their dream. It's always a thing we say when we cover the draft every year. Like, this is somebody's dream coming true, and we get to watch that. It's just a miraculous thing. I think that's why it kind of surpasses football. And this last night was also an event that sort of surpassed football, unfortunately, in a different way.
Yeah, prayers for Hamlin, and this is why I really am never. You'll never catch me talking about football players being overpaid because these are the risks they take, and yeah, I mean, it's just you're almost surprised it doesn't. Something like this hasn't happened sooner. Things like this don't happen more often because of the nature of the sport and some of the hits we see these guys take. And, as we were talking about backstage before the show, like, this seemed like a relatively benign tackle, like a routine play. Yeah, like you see 20 things more violent looking during any NFL game. And, Yeah, man, it's a tough business. And yeah, I think you said everything very well, Joe.
It's also a business that we love, these men who play it and the men and women who are around this game and make their living off this game. They love this game. We love this game. That's why we're here doing what we do. So it's a game that brings us all together. And last night was another moment that did that. And it was a weekend of some great football and some incredible stuff going on. So not to be lost in that too, of all the joy and starting off the new year with football and all of that community. And that's what we're doing here. And as we continue to look ahead to those things that we enjoy so much, getting together with our friends and family, watching these games, we're going to watch these games. We're going to be involved in these games, and the players are going to be, playing these games going forward. And we're going to start here with Saturday games because the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be playing the Las Vegas Raiders. We know those games have been moved to Saturday. I know we're very excited about the Tennessee Jacksonville one. We'll get to that one in a second. That's going to be a really great game to talk about. But first, Kansas City. We know the number for this one is 53. 9.5 is the spread here. We're looking at the Las Vegas Raiders hosting the Kansas City Chiefs. Las Vegas pushed unbelievable to overtime. The San Francisco 49ers, an incredible effort there. Could not have been more wrong about Devontae Adams and the Las Vegas Raiders and Jarrett Stidham. They did come up short, though. But here we are. So, Freedman, when you're looking at this game here, and obviously the Kansas City Chiefs continue to roll themselves into the playoffs. What do you think about this 9.5? Is that number safe?
Well, Jarrett Stidham looked really great, surprisingly great last week. Well, I say great, but he had the
surprising.
County,
it's okay.
he had the county numbers. Over 300 yards, 365 yards, 3 touchdowns. Did have 2 interceptions, but certainly he was better than I anticipated he would be, given everything that we had seen and hadn't seen out of him to that point in his career. So the Raiders do get a little bit of an upgrade there. That said, I still have the Kansas City Chiefs at minus 10.75 here. I haven't bet it because the projections have been off with the Chiefs all year long. Like in terms of the numbers that they are able to put up, I think they deserve to be the number 1 or number 2 power rated team in the league. They are in the highest tier of all the teams here, but there's a difference between what they're able to do on a play-to-play basis and the number of points they're able to get in needing to covering a spread. And they just haven't been able to do that recently. So I think that if I had to bet a side here, I would lean ever so slightly towards the Chiefs, but I'm not betting it.
Pat, are you in the same mold here when it comes to the Chiefs, where you really don't want to get pressed into this number at the 9.5 because some of these games have been closer?
I am, and especially coming off a game in which I beat the Chiefs, or bet the Chiefs to cover against the Broncos, and they didn't again. I mean, that's twice I've been burned on Chiefs-Broncos games this year, and those are not the first 2 times I've been burned betting the Chiefs as big favorites. Like, I just am sick of losing money betting the Chiefs as big favorites in games where it seems like they should win by 2 or 3 touchdowns. So I don't want to do that here, but I am interested in this total because 53 seems just way too high. And I do realize the Raiders were just involved in a 71-point game with Jarrett Stidham. And granted, he did look really good in that game, but he also threw 2 interceptions. It would not surprise me if the Jarrett Stidham carriage turned into a pumpkin for this game. And in their earlier meeting, 59 points, really well played game. The Chiefs beat the Raiders 30-29 in a game where I think there were like 750 yards of offense and no turnovers. I don't think we're going to see that kind of a game here in week 18 with a backup quarterback going for the Raiders. And I'm still kind of viewing him as such, as a backup quarterback. I don't think he's the second coming of Jim Plunkett just because of that game against the 49ers.
I will say one quick thing here on the spread. It is as low as 8.5 at DraftKings. It is 9 at PointsBet and 9.5 at BetMGM and FanDuel. So there is a little bit of market disagreement or market movement on this number. And it would not surprise me if it continued to move towards the Raiders in this spot, as it already is doing in the market. So depending on where you're leaning, I think you bet it now or you wait.
You think it could get lower than 8.5?
Yeah, I think it could.
Interesting. All right. The Jacksonville Jaguars and Tennessee Titans are giving us an early playoff game. You win and you win the division here. I assume if you dialed this back, I don't know, about 8 weeks ago, this number would be inverted. But right now you are correct. You're looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars being 6.5-point home favorites here over the Tennessee Titans. And this is a huge scenario here for Jacksonville, who playing with house money. They're 8-8. The Tennessee Titans are 7-9. 38.5 is the number, plus 225 on the money line for the Titans. Pat, when you're looking at this one, clearly all the momentum is on the Jacksonville side in the last few weeks. You are also going to get a different quarterback again for the Tennessee Titans here. So that certainly has a lot to do with this. Do you think the Titans just have enough, let's say not even to win this game, but do they have enough to keep this game close in your opinion?
Oh, maybe. It seems like based on the last 6 games and the 6-game losing streak they're on, no, because they have just not been able to generate much offense. I mean, they've scored 16 or fewer points in 5 of these 6 losses, and they haven't scored more than 14 points in any of their last 3 games. So hard to see the optimism for them offensively. I don't know, man. Maybe Vrabel can rally the troops, and like they would have to ugly this game up, I think, to have a chance, truly. And it's kind of interesting. When these teams last played, it was week 14, and the Jaguars won 36-22. And I felt like we've seen glimpses of the Jaguars offense play well earlier this season, throughout the season, but like week 14 seemed like it was their great awakening on offense. Like they have been really good ever since that game. And like, I don't know if the Titans defense, as injury ravaged as it's been, and they've given up 25.7 points a game during this losing streak, I don't know if they can keep the Jaguars from, functioning at this high level they've been functioning at. So I kind of like the over here, but I'm not crazy about the side. Like, I think the line is pretty close to what it should be.
You mentioned, Pat, about this is what they do. They kind of keep things close, keep it ugly, but at this point, Freedman, with all the injuries that this team has suffered, do you think that they're capable of continuing to play that style of football?
No, I think zero chance. And and they haven't even been playing it to this point. So I don't think they haven't been able to play successfully ugly winning football for the past 6 weeks or so. And, as Fitz mentioned, in that week 14 game, the Jags were underdogs. They were 3.5-point underdogs, and they went out there and won by 2 touchdowns. And the Titans are even more injured now than they were then. Now, granted, you can say that, they basically took a glorified bye last week by letting a lot of their players rest, but a lot of those players weren't going to be playing anyway because they were injured. And that's not even counting guys who are on IR. So they are, I mean, I'm not even going to try to list all of the players who are out for them on IR. But importantly, Ryan Tannehill is still out. Like that's one of the most important positions that they could have. I know, like, they de-emphasize quarterback more than most teams, but there's still a significant drop off from Tannehill to Josh Dobbs. And that's assuming that Dobbs is better than Malik Willis, and he probably is. But like, they're starting their 3rd string quarterback in this game, going against a team that is, firing on all cylinders right now. And the players who were injured and maybe could have played last week, there's still no guarantee that all of those guys come back this week. Christian Fulton, cornerback, Dylan Cole, linebacker, and then on the defensive line, Jeffrey Simmons at defensive tackle, Denico Autry at edge, and then right tackle Nicholas Petit-Frere. There's no guarantee he's playing in this game. Safety Amani Hooker. Like, they are just injured all over the place. I don't think this game is close.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Friedman. I think that Tennessee can't do what they want to do anymore. And it's not a knock on Dobbs. He had a couple moments in that game. It's just I think Jacksonville is a really good football team right now. They're playing good defense too. They're getting to the quarterback. I mean, they're making things happen there. What a story too. What a turnaround. The Jacksonville Jaguars in a year, the laughingstock of the league, all the way to a playoff team. Amazing turnaround potentially. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they look like they're going to be a playoff team. 8-8. 6-10 Atlanta Falcons. They are on the road facing the Falcons. Tampa's 3-point favorites, as you would imagine. That's about right here. Can't really give Tampa too much credit. 40.5 is the number. I'm sorry.
Joe,
it flipped. Yes, I see that. My apologies. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 3-point underdogs to the Falcons here. So is this a case, Friedman, where we're just looking at a team that's not playing for anything? We're not worried about it. Everyone's sitting. So is this a game that you would even wager on because of that variable?
No, it's a meaningless game, in theory. And so
Mhm.
this opened as 7.5. The Falcons were 7.5 point favorites when this line opened on Sunday night, and it's been bet down to 3. 7.5 was way too much, but
Mhm.
3 is right around where it should be. I have this projected at 3.75 because we don't know for sure how much. The Buccaneers are going to rest in this spot. Like, yeah, they looked good on offense last week, but there's the possibility that they still might want to get in some of those, like, quote unquote live practice reps to get in playoff state, because their offense, yeah, sure, it's looked good in 1 out of the past like 14 games, but
Yeah, but
it's not
it's
something
weird.
where
It's
they
like,
can just
what's more
rest.
important for them, reps or the age of this team and getting more rest? Like
I think,
rest or reps, I
yeah,
guess at this point, that's the question you have to ask yourself.
I think they get significant rest on defense, and I think offense, they let those guys go out there and try to gel just a little bit more.
Sounds about right to me. Do you agree here, Pat? And does that make this game a little precarious from a number standpoint?
I do agree. Todd Bowles has said that that he's planning to play his starters. I believe that was the exact quote. And it's just a matter of how much. And I think we see probably a preseason type approach to this game where, as Freedman was talking about, like, let them, especially after a game where their offense, maybe not the running game, but at least the passing game was very functional and successful against the Panthers in that big game. Maybe they give the starters a couple of series and just try to keep the rhythm going. But eventually this is going to turn into Desmond Ridder versus Blaine Gabbert. And at 40.5, I'm pretty interested in the under here.
That's probably the best
That's
wager
a
right
good
now if you're
call.
trying to look at it. Like, good call there, Pat. All right. The Chicago Bears at home, 4-point underdogs to the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are now 12-4 after getting shellacked by the Green Bay Packers. Ooh, man, what a bad look that was for the Vikings, and a really good game for Pat's Green Bay Packers. 45.5 is the number, plus 156 on the money line for the Bears. Like, the Bears look like they're trying to track for the highest draft pick they can right now, which is probably a good idea for them. Get Justin Fields some help. Pat, Minnesota Vikings licking their wounds a little bit. I'm sure this is a fun one for you here on this end. What do you think of this in the state of these two football teams coming into the last week of the season?
Boy, Joe, I don't know what to think, because talk about ambiguous motivation levels for a football game right now. I mean, the Bears probably don't want to mess up their or
Right.
their draft position. Matt Eberflus has been non-committal about whether he's going to play Justin Fields. And like, if you watch that game with the Bears and Lions last week, Fields did not do much running after he had that long run in the
Yeah, that
first
one long one.
quarter.
Yeah.
And it looked like he was, I don't know, like, not right after he got up, and like he was maybe laboring to breathe a little bit on that. I wonder if, like, he had some sort of rib injury or
There's
something like
so
that.
many other, and I also think Pat in that game, I mean, just nobody was healthy around him too. He had no wide receiver. He's got very little
Right.
talent around him and very little targets around him and people that can get open. So he's just kind of in a bad spot all around. I think they shouldn't play him. I think they should put him in bubble
I
wrap for
agree.
next year and say, let's move on. If that ends up being the scenario, what do you think of the Vikings on this side?
Well, here's the thing, Joe. Do the Vikings really want to jump past the 49ers and get into that second spot? Because if they get the number 2 seed, they are probably going to be playing either the Green Bay Packers or the Detroit Lions. And, a Green Bay Packers team that just completely trucked them in Lambeau Field, and was, the first team all year to really just, maybe not the first, but among the first teams to
Oh
clamp
no, they
down on
trucked him.
Justin Jefferson.
They trucked him.
So,
And look, there was a lot of issues with that field surface too. You guys were stripping all over the place, falling over us. But give Jair Alexander and all them credit. They played physical, they played hard, and they kept their foot on the gas too, which is something sometimes that Packer team also struggles with.
yeah, but I don't know how badly the Vikings are going to want to win this game and go all out for it. Like, I'm not sure if Fields doesn't play. I mean, this line looks too small, but at the same time, like, I don't know that the Vikings are hugely motivated in this one themselves, and they might rest some of their starters in the second half at least.
Freeman, do you think the Vikings have to go in and kind of wash their mouth out a little bit with after what happened to this Sunday? You think they kind of need a cleansing kind of contest here against the Bears to get back on track and get that confidence level up?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think. I mean, I think they've announced that they're not planning on benching their starters. And, given the situation with the Bears, I think it's not known if they're sitting Justin Fields, but they have every incentive not to win this game. They have the incentive to maybe start him and then bench him at halftime so they can, evaluate the other quarterback, like whatever it is. Like, I don't think we're going to see the Bears doing their full thing. And I think the Vikings will want to, sort of get back on track, as you mentioned there. So I have this projected at 3.5, but like I understand that I'm probably not accurately accounting for all of the different variables in this spot. And if I had to bet on a side here, and in fact I did earlier, I would bet on Minnesota, but I took that number when it was Minnesota -1, which is where it opened on Sunday night, 1.5, and it's now moved to 4. So the market has been moving towards Minnesota, and I think that's the right side.
Indianapolis hosting the Houston Texans. The Colts are 4-11-1. The Houston Texans are 2-13. The Colts are 2.5-point favorites in this one. 38 is the number, and the money line is +130 on the Houston side. Freedman, I know this could sound crazy, and I know a lot of Houston Texans fans probably don't want to hear me say this, but I think this number is wrong. I think the Houston Texans could go in there and win this football game. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. The Colts shouldn't be favored against anyone. I guess the only reason why they are favored is because of home field advantage in theory. But yeah, they are the worst team. I think they're the worst team in the league right now. I think the Texans are better. The Texans, before getting demolished last week, they've been playing some very quality opponents, very tough. And they have much more of a backbone than I think we have seen out of the Colts recently. He will now be starting Sam Ellinger, their second string, third string quarterback.
Hard to keep track.
Yeah. This number is still 3 +3 at DraftKings, +3 at PointsBet. I don't know. This is pure gambling at this point. But if I had to take a position, it would definitely be Houston, and I am tempted to do it given there's a 3 out there. That's where this opened, and it has moved to 2.5 at some books. So I'm very tempted by this.
All right, let's get your take here on this, Pat. I would just go flat out take Houston on the money line at +130 and look on to the next game. What would you do here?
I see it kind of the same way you do, Joe, especially with Sam Ellinger at quarterback. I mean, the Indy offense was pretty hapless with Ellinger making 2 starts earlier in weeks 8 and 9. They scored 19 points in those 2 games combined. In the second of those 2 games, they scored 3 points against the Patriots, and Ellinger was sacked 9 times while throwing for 103 yards. His sack yardage almost exceeded his passing yardage. The one thing I'm worried about, though, here, can the Bears leapfrog the Texans and get the first pick if the Texans win this game and the Bears lose? I believe that would be the case, wouldn't it?
Well, that would certainly put a wrinkle in the situation there for them. Look, there's more than one franchise quarterback, I think, in that draft. I would say minimum 2. So if you're going to go to the 2 spot, I think you can still be okay. It's weird as Freedman looked at that, Pat. My take is, especially, after everything they've been through with the Houston Texans organization, is they want that 1 pick and they should take Bryce Young because I think they need a makeover start to finish. And I think he's the right kind of new face for that organization. I don't know if they want to go through another situation where you're questioning a player or you're wondering, is this the player we're taking the talent, or is this like we're getting the full package? I think this is an organization that kind of needs the total package there a little bit more. And Bryce Young's a good face for that. Freeman, do you have the update on that?
I'm pretty sure they have it locked in because they tied a game. And so even if they win, they would be, what's that number? They would be 3, even if they won, they'd be 3-13-1. And if Chicago loses, they would be 3-14. Oh, I'm wrong. 14. I'm wrong.
Yeah.
They would flip them.
Yeah, they would flip
the
them.
tie.
Yeah. Okay. So, that's the one concern. I mean, Lovie Smith strikes me as the old school, we're going to play to win kind of coach. But, you also wonder if there's going to be any communication between Lovie and the front office about maybe, how much the starters play in the second half.
That's very possible. A very dangerous circumstances. This is what you get to in week 18. The Jets 7-9 versus the Miami Dolphins 8-8. The Dolphins continue to sputter. Mike White was not magic, unfortunately, against the Seahawks early this week. The Dolphins are 1-point home favorites here. 38 is the number. We're going to get Teddy Bridgewater again in this game. Look, it's practically a pick 'em, Fitz. So who do you want to pick, if anybody, here?
Oh man, I'm probably just gonna lay off this game, and it might not even be Teddy because he's got this pinky
Yeah.
injury on his
Mhm.
throwing hand. So we might get oh man,
Skylar
why am I
Thompson.
blanking on Skylar
Tyler
Thompson,
Thompson
the
again,
K
yeah.
State kid? Yeah, so and like I feel like the Jets are probably going to be motivated to try to go out on a high note and feel good about themselves going into the offseason after what's been largely a successful season, even though things have not gone well for them of late. So anyway, with the either a second or third string quarterback playing for Miami, and I think Mike White has revealed himself to be not the savior of the Jets in recent weeks. Leaning a little bit toward the under here, but I don't really want to pick a side, Joe. I mean, like you said, it's pretty much a pick 'em at this number, and I just I don't feel good about it. If I were forced to make a call on this, I think I'd take the Jets though.
The Jets and Dolphins, by the way, have both lost 5 in a row here. Your thoughts, Freeman, on that? One of these teams theoretically has to win here. Do you see any value at all early on?
I have a slight lean to Miami, but it's like 1.5 versus 1.
Hmm.
So I don't really have any lean here that I would bet on. Both of these teams have fallen. Like both of them look like pretty decent playoff contenders earlier in the year, and then as you mentioned, both lost 5 games in a row. There's I doubt that either one of these coaches gets fired, but one of these coaches will have 6 straight losses on his resume entering the offseason. Like there's a chance that someone will get fired. If it's not the coach, the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, whatever it is, I feel like someone is going to lose their job in that coaching staff. But
I gotta
I have
say,
no
one
take
thing
on
I would
this
say to
game.
that, Friedman, is I think that it's the quarterback situation for the Jets. I think all of us think if the Jets had consistent, competent quarterback play, we might be looking at a different story here for the Jets this year.
Yeah.
That defense has been very good. I think Robert Saleh is a good coach. Mike McDaniel, I was skeptical, and then he was kind of the guy for a while there. He was the boy genius, and then all of a sudden it's come crashing down. But once again, you don't have the right health of the quarterback. Quarterback's not in the right place. These things can become very tenuous very quickly in the NFL. Carolina Panthers had a moment in the island of relevancy last week, but now they are 6-10, taking on the New Orleans Saints at 7-9. They are 3.5-point underdogs traveling to New Orleans, as they should be. 41.5 is the number, plus 160 on the money line for the Panthers. Let's talk about this one here, Friedman. Carolina, certainly a team that's been more competitive with Sam Darnold under center. And the question is, can they be competitive in this game here? And do you like the side of the Carolina Panthers because of that?
Yeah, I actually have a pretty strong lean towards the Saints here. I haven't bet it. This is one of those games where neither team really has anything to play for. But the number's 3.5. I have it at 6. I think the Saints are pretty significantly better than the Panthers. The Panthers are missing their top 2 cornerbacks. The Saints are almost entirely healthy now on defense. Their offense isn't great, but I think it is good enough. So again, I guess Sam Darnold has been reasonably good, or he's been better than I would have expected the past 4 weeks or so. But I still don't think the Panthers are really all that good on offense.
All right. Fitz, what are your thoughts here about this contest? Do you think that New Orleans is indeed the worthy favorite here in this contest, as Vegas does believe?
No, I kind of see this differently than Freedman. In fact, I've got I think it should be a 2.5 point game. But like things are moving against me. And while I was looking at this game on DraftKings about an hour ago, I mean, this moved in real time to 4 points on DraftKings. I'm not sure if it's still at 4, but yeah. So I just like the way the Panthers have played since Darnold took over. Their collapse on defense against the Buccaneers last week notwithstanding. And a lot of that obviously with J.C. Horn out. I mean, losing one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL, and all of a sudden Mike Evans just totally erupts and the pass defense went to hell. But like, are the Saints equipped to take advantage of a depleted secondary for the Panthers? Like, I don't know if they are. And yeah, I mean that the Panthers offense has generally looked a lot better with Darnold at the controls. I feel like this is going to be a close game. And, when the spread is drifting past field goal range, I'm inclined to take the Panthers.
The next game on the slate for Week 18 is the Pittsburgh Steelers, 8-8 after a big victory Sunday night against Baltimore Ravens. 7-9 Cleveland Browns come to town. Pittsburgh 3-point favorites at home, so they're basically telling you this is your standard NFL contest. 39 is the over/under, plus 130 for the Cleveland Browns. Pat, the Steelers, starting to, I think, get a little confidence. They have a chance to be above 500 here this week with a victory. That's something that you would certainly like to do if you're Mike Tomlin after a very rough start to the season. Do you think that's the case when all said and done here?
Yeah, Tomlin's never finished with a losing record, right? So
Right.
he's trying to keep that streak intact. Boy, I mean, if it stays at a field goal, if it gets to anything more than a field goal, I would want to be on Cleveland. Like, I do
I would
not feel good
100%
about.
agree with that.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Pittsburgh should not be favored by more than a field goal against just about anyone, especially a team that's, reasonably competitive here like the Browns. So right now I'm just not really interested in touching this game. It feels like it's going to be another, typical AFC North slog of a game, low scoring, close. I'm not interested in betting it.
Normally you'd want to go for the under here too, but 39 is already set pretty low, Freedman. Is that too low of a bar?
I think that's probably about right. I actually still, even at current number, it's plus 2.5 across the market. There is a juiced plus 3 at BetMGM. I would bet that. I like Cleveland in this spot. I have this close to a pick 'em. I think Cleveland, they have the better quarterback, even though Deshaun Watson hasn't been great since returning. We did see him start to round into form in the second half last week, and the defense for the Browns for the past 6 weeks or so has been like back to the unit that people expected it to be entering the year. It's been one of the best defenses in the league. So I think they have the better quarterback. They have the better defense, or at least a defense that is just as good. And in theory, they probably have the better offensive play caller as well. So I do like the Browns in this spot.
All right, next game on the slate, the Denver Broncos 4-12, hosting Los Angeles Chargers at 10-6. Chargers are 3-point favorites on the road here against the Denver Broncos. 40 is the number for this contest, plus 145 on the Denver money line. Freedman, any early value in Denver, LA for you this week?
No, I have this projected at 3.25. So really nothing to say on that. I mean, I have been tempted all year, as people are probably aware, by the unders in the Denver Broncos games, but I'm not really even sure I want to look there in this spot. The number's 40. I have it projected right around there. So really nothing of value for me in this game.
Do you see this the same fits?
I do. Two teams I've had kind of a hard time getting a handle on all year. Like every time I want to go against the Broncos, like last week against the Chiefs, they turn in one of their better performances. So yeah, I'm not eager to take any Chargers game at this point. Like the Chargers are, to me, the great Jekyll and Hyde team of the NFL in 2022. And, wouldn't be surprised if that carried into the first weekend of 2023.
Okay, moving on to the Philadelphia Eagles and New York Giants. Eagles struggling right now with Gardner Minshew under center last couple weeks. They are still 14-point favorites here against the New York Football Giants. New York 9-6-1. The Eagles are 13-3 now. 42.5 is his number, plus 600 on the money line. This is an in-division game here, division rivalry here. A lot to take in, and I know that the Giants could theoretically just kind of rest on their laurels a bit. But Fitz, do you think that's Brian Daboll's style?
I think it is. I think they're going to basically shut it down for this game. And they're going against a very motivated Eagles team playing to keep the number 1 seed and get that first round bye. So it should be a big total, and 2 touchdowns seems about right to me. With Jalen Hurts coming back, I may be a little bit interested. Well, I don't know about interested, but I think there is maybe just a smidge of value on the over here. Like I've got it at 43. And I mean, I think the Philly offense is going to go all out here and try to put this one away early. So I don't know how much, if at all, the Giants starters are going to play. It wouldn't shock me if we didn't see Daniel Jones start at quarterback for the Giants in this one.
Okay. Your thoughts here, Freedman, on this contest. Do you see this the same way as Fitz does, that Brian Dibble and the Giants just look ahead to the playoffs rather than looking ahead to week 18?
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Like they have the ability to have a pretty decent, glorified bye week here, and I do think that the Eagles will probably go all out. Jalen Hurts expected to return, and they're playing for the number one seed. So I don't think there's even much of an idea of like, okay, they play their starters in the first half or the first three quarters or whatever it is, and then they get a decent lead, and then they bench those guys. Like those guys will have rest the week after. So I think they probably play the full game, but I don't know. Like there is still something about the Giants. Like Tyrod Taylor is the backup quarterback. Like he's one of the better backups in the league. He historically does well as an underdog. Like 14 points is a lot of points, even given the situation, like
Hmm.
a low scoring game in January.
I
Like
agree. I feel like it's too much
it feels
personally.
like a little bit too much, and that's even with me trying to adjust for the likelihood that the Giants rest a lot of players. So I haven't bet it, but for me, it would be Giants or pass.
All right, the Rams and Seattle Seahawks are going to lock up in Seattle. 6.5 point favorites are the Seahawks at home here against the Los Angeles Rams. The number for this game is 41.5 plus 240 on the money line. Freeman, what do you see in this game here with Seattle Seahawks got back on track this past weekend with a big win against the Jets?
I like the Rams in this spot. I haven't bet it, but my number points towards the Rams. 6.5. I have it at 5.5. So a little bit of value there. And six is increasingly more of a key number in today's NFL. So I think there is some value there. But again, we have the spot of like differing motivations. But the Rams have been dead for weeks and they still haven't sort of rolled over and died. They've actually still been playing pretty tough. And whether that's, Baker Mayfield, Sean McVay, whatever it is, I think they're going to be playing pretty tough. And for them to be able to, in theory, maybe kind of get a win in the last week of the season and, keep the Seahawks from getting into the playoffs, I think that's something that they would probably like to do. So I think they probably play this, as if it's a real game for them. And if that's the case, 6.5 is too much.
Is 6.5 too much in your opinion too, Pat?
I think it's about spot on. And as much as the Seahawks have been kind of a pleasant surprise this season and still have this chance to get into the playoffs, like I don't totally trust them in a game with a taller number. And yeah, I mean, the Rams kind of let me down last week after they demolished the Broncos on Christmas Day. I thought they could maybe hang with the Chargers, and they could not. Although they didn't totally roll over in that game, but like not a good result. Obviously, losing by 3 touchdowns. Yeah, I can't lay this big a number with the Seahawks. I just can't. With a Sean McVay team on the other side. And I agree with Freedman that I'm sure the Rams would love to derail the Seahawks playoffs hopes in this one and go into the offseason feeling good about themselves. So, yeah, I don't really want to touch this, and I don't see much value on the total either.
The 49ers feel pretty good about themselves at 12-4. They are 14-point favorites against the Arizona Cardinals at home here in San Fran. 40 is the number for this one, plus 600 on the money line for Arizona. Big underdogs here. Arizona is. I know we're going to probably hear a fun Cliff Kingsbury nugget at some point here from Freedman. I don't know if he's still got any left in the tank, but look, at this point, when it comes to the San Francisco 49ers, like Brock Purdy has gotten it done. The 49ers have gotten it done. They were challenged a little last week. Maybe they were not taking the Las Vegas Raiders as seriously as they should have. And it's a good lesson here for this week. But what are your thoughts here? Again, similar situation where you're looking at a big number here at 14. Do you think that's too big?
Yeah, this is historically like the spot where you would want to bet Cliff Kingsbury as a road dog. He's just been,
But
yeah,
I'm
he's
waiting
been
for that
great.
but.
He's been great in
Yeah.
that spot. That said, they're starting David Blau, and I'm still not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name right, which is
It
sort
is
of the
Blau,
sign
yeah.
of how inconsequential he is in the landscape of the NFL. So I'm not betting on the Cardinals in this spot. I have this projected at 14.25. So I think we're basically right where this number should be. It's like 14 is a large number at this point in the season, especially going against a divisional opponent, but I think it should be 14.
Pat, do you think it should be 14 as well?
I do. I think the numbers are kind of spot on here. I don't see any value, and I just generally don't like playing this sort of a game, with a really good team with something to play for in the playoffs. And the Cardinals, I don't know, maybe they show up, maybe they don't. David Blau actually looked pretty good last week.
He
I
did.
gotta
He
give it
did.
to him.
Yeah.
And he, man, when I saw that guy play at Purdue, I never would have guessed that he would have been in the NFL, carving out a career as a backup. But he actually did
Hey,
play
he was a
reasonably
hero
well
a couple
last week.
Thanksgivings ago. I mean, he could thank
Yeah,
Kenny Galladay for that big contract that he gave him by slinging the football to him on that Turkey Day a couple years ago.
yeah, exactly. Like he made Kenny Galladay look like a
Yeah,
top
Kenny
wide
Galladay says,
receiver
"Thanks, David Blau."
over
Right?
like
Yeah.
yeah, and it was like it wasn't just one game. It was like over a 4-week stretch. So maybe David Blau isn't as bad as we think.
Maybe.
But still, I'm not interested in betting Cliff Kingsbury to cover here.
All right, last two here we have on the slate. We've got the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Commanders. The Cowboys 12-4, the Washington Commanders 7-8-1. The Commanders are 4-point home underdogs in this one. 41.5 is the number. You got plus 170 on the Washington side of this football game. Pat, do you see any early value in Cowboys Commanders?
Oh man, I'm anxious to see what Freedman says about this game because I feel like there's a little bit of value on the Cowboys here. I feel like it should be 4.5, but at the same time, this Washington defense, now that they've got Chase Young back and can unleash this Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen trio of terror, like that's kind of a scary group to bet against or bet overs on. So yeah, I mean, like I think Dallas should win this game by more than 3.5, but I don't know if I have the right instinct on that one.
Freedman, what's your instinct when it comes to Cowboys Commanders?
I'm wrong. I will say I had this at 7.25 early in the week, and -6 was the number that this opened at, and it's moved against me. Moved from -6 to -4. So my instincts are wrong in this spot, but I will say. I don't know. I do not bet the Commanders. I do not trust them in this spot here. Carson Wentz looked really bad. They have a head coach who didn't understand the landscape of, oh, hey, I could be eliminated from the playoffs this week. And the Cowboys historically, even when they've had like nothing to play for or when they've had incentive to rest players in the final week of the season, they've still gone out there and played tough because Jerry Jones like once got burned by resting players, or he thinks he got burned by resting players in the final week of the season, and he doesn't want to be in that situation again. And like they're theoretically still live for the number 1 seed. They're playing at the exact same time as the Eagles. So like they're going to go out there and try to win. So you have one team that I think is actually pretty decent. The Cowboys are one of the top 5 teams in the league going against a Commanders offense that I think with Carson Wentz at quarterback is woefully undermanned. So I'm on the Cowboys here, but the market has moved against me.
Last but certainly not least, the Green Bay Packers 8-8, the Detroit Lions 8-8. This one's in Green Bay. The Packers are 4.5-point favorites. 49.5 is the number, plus 185 on the money line. Freedman, is there any letdown after last week here for the Packers after a huge emotional win for them? They better take the Lions seriously, it feels like. And we all know Jared Goff is certainly not the same guy on the road in any elements. I don't know what the elements are for this game quite yet, but is 4.5 a comfortable number here where you think maybe the Packers aren't getting enough credit, or are they getting too much?
I think 4.5 is the right number. I have it at 4.25, but I got to say, like, I am very torn on this game. Part of me really likes the idea of betting Dan Campbell in like a must-win spot as a road underdog. It's like, yes, like I want to bet that. At the same time, I love Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau Field. Like that's the time to bet on him. Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau, Aaron Rodgers in division crushes in both of those spots. And so this is like the Aaron Rodgers spot where you'd want to bet on him. So I'm torn just in terms of like trends and like desires, and the projection is right on. So I think this is probably the right number, but I don't think there's a letdown for the Packers. If anything, I think like this is what they've been building towards. Like they had it circled, they had it mapped out on the calendar. If all of these things play out, if like we can control our destiny with 3 straight wins, and yeah, I don't think there's a letdown at all. If anything, I think it's like momentum building and they go out and they win by 20 points.
Fitz, we've built all the way up to this game, and this moment is the moment too big for the Packers, or are they hitting their stride at just the right time?
Yeah, so to address a point Freedman made, I think if you looked back at Aaron Rodgers' record in home games against the Lions, I think against the spread, it is probably not very good. It seems like, and I've not actually researched this, but based on empirical evidence of me being a Packers fan, I can tell you that they often kind of lay an egg and sleepwalk through these home games against the Lions. But under most circumstances, it's the Lions coming in with a terrible record and Packers favored by probably double digits. And, the game's in mid-October or something like that. So different circumstances here. You, Joe, pointed out that Goff is a different quarterback away from home, and that's certainly the case. And I will say that in any home game for the Packers in Lambeau Field in January, I will blind bet the under on a 49-point total every time. And it's not going to be Arctic conditions here in the upper Midwest this weekend. I think the game time temperature will be somewhere in the 20s, so it's not going to be frigid. It will be chilly, however, and I don't think the offenses are necessarily going to function at a super high level in those conditions. To me, if I was going to bet this, I would bet Detroit. I think this is maybe a little too tall for the Packers. I like the under more than I like either side here. It's confusing to me.
Here's a stat that might make you feel better. I'm just going to throw this straight out at you here. At home this year, Jared Goff in 9 games, 23 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. On the road, 7 games, just 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That is drastic. That is a drastic difference for a defense that's starting to play with a lot of confidence in Green Bay last week.
They have fixed their defense, which is kind of confusing to me that the defense has played a lot better without Rashawn Gary, who is a phenomenal player. And somehow they have fixed
Walker
the defense.
Has kind of stepped up a little physicality, I felt like. Did you feel like Walker?
Yeah, I mean, he's been a very good find for them as a rookie, but he is no Rashawn Gary. Rashawn Gary is one of the most impactful. But it was the physicality,
even though they took the penalty on that one play where they really should not have body slammed Dalvin Cook the way they did. It was almost, to me, it felt like an emotional moment where, the Packers needed to show a little bit of that. And that's been their problem on defense, especially with Gary out. They haven't had that. They had it this past weekend. Even though they took the penalty, it was almost like a penalty you take because you start to get a little bit more confidence in, hey, we're making a physical statement here. And the Packers made that statement. I think they're going to make it here again. I really do. I'm sold on the Packers now. Can you believe that? This is where we got to in week 18.
Yeah,
maybe the Packers are better than I thought.
They were obviously up for the Vikings, and whether they can keep that sort of intensity 2 weeks in a row, we'll see. It's going to be a really fun game, really interesting game. But as of now, I'm slamming the under on this one. Not quite as interested in the side.
That's fair enough. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to the show today and watching the show on the YouTube channel. Obviously, the circumstances of today's show very different than normal. We can only hope and continue for Damar Hamlin's speedy recovery and continue to think about not only him as well as his family, his teammates, and for everybody as well. A bit of humanity last night struck everybody very hard, and it was, I think, a little therapeutic to just sit and talk about football again for a little while. And we'll continue to monitor all these situations here, obviously on our social media platforms as well. Thank you for joining us today for Betting Pros. For Matthew Freedman and Pat Fitzmaurice, I'm Joe Pisapia. We'll see you next time, kids.